CREA just cut its 2026 housing forecast for the second time in 3 months. In January, they predicted 5.1% sales growth. By April, they cut that to 1%. 2 weeks ago, on July 15th, they cut it again, negative 1.4%. That is a full reversal from growth to contraction in 6 months. But here is what they are not telling you in the press release. The national average price forecast of 1.1% growth is hiding one of the widest regional splits CREA has ever published. British Columbia and Ontario are both posting year-over-year price declines, while the Prairies and Newfoundland post gains. The national MLS Home Price Index benchmark sits at $665,600, down 3.6% year-over-year, and 21% below the March 2022 peak. And here is the number that explains every town on this list. Prices fell 21% from peak, but the monthly carrying cost on the same home barely moved, because rates roughly doubled in the same window. Prices dropped. Payments did not. That is the trap CREA's data is now documenting. These are the 10 Canadian towns where that trap is deepest right now, and the real reason behind every single one. The town at number 1 is a market most buyers still call safe. Number 10. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Halifax is the first market on this list that nobody expected. For 3 years straight, Halifax posted some of the strongest price gains in the country. Pandemic-era migration from Ontario poured into the Maritimes, and Halifax absorbed the largest share. Prices ran up more than 40% between 2020 and 2023, on the back of GTA remote workers who discovered a Halifax mortgage cost half of what they were paying in Toronto. Now the tailwind has reversed. Canada's population growth is slowing faster than any forecaster predicted. The country's population actually declined in the most recent quarter, a reversal that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. CREA specifically cited the sharp reduction in population growth as a driver of the slowdown in Atlantic Canada and Quebec. The MLS benchmark price in Nova Scotia posted its first year-over-year decline in more than 3 years. Listings are climbing, days on market are stretching past 40. A buyer walking into Halifax today sees lower prices and thinks the correction is the opportunity. But the carrying cost on a Halifax home at current rates is barely cheaper than it was at the peak, because the rate increase ate the price decline. That is the carrying cost trap in a single city. Halifax is not collapsing, but the pricing was built on a migration trend that has peaked, and CREA's downgrade reflects exactly that. Number 9. Kelowna, British Columbia. Kelowna was the pandemic's favorite lifestyle market. Remote tech workers from Vancouver discovered they could work from a lakeside house in the Okanagan for a fraction of Metro Vancouver prices. Between 2020 and 2022, Kelowna prices surged on the back of that demand. Then the remote tech workers went back to Vancouver, or lost their jobs entirely, as BC tech layoffs accelerated through 2025. The province introduced strict short-term rental restrictions that effectively banned most Airbnb-style operations in residential zones, gutting the investment case for hundreds of Kelowna properties overnight. And discretionary spending on second homes collapsed as carrying costs rose. The result is a market sitting on elevated inventory, with almost no buyer demand in the segment that drove the boom. Days on market in the BC interior have stretched well beyond the provincial average, and recreational property listings in the Okanagan have climbed to levels not seen since the 2008 correction. Kelowna is not on most avoid lists because it is not a major metro, but the structural damage is real, and the correction has further to run. The next 3 cities tell the same story inside Ontario, where the same carrying cost trap is playing out at a larger scale. Number 8. London, Ontario. London sits 2 hours southwest of Toronto, along the 401, and was the poster market for pandemic-era remote work migration. Between 2020 and 2022, the average home price nearly doubled, as GTA buyers discovered a London mortgage was half the size. The RBC Economics report shows London's MLS HPI fell 7.1% year-over-year as of March 2026. Active listings are running above the 5-year average. Days on market have pushed past 35. A homeowner who bought a typical London house at the 2022 peak has now watched roughly $60,000 to $70,000 of equity disappear, and the carrying cost at current rates makes holding painful. The remote work buyers who drove the boom are not buying anymore. Some moved back when return to office mandates hit. Others are watching from the sidelines, waiting for a bottom that CREA's data says has not arrived. London is not failing. The migration pattern that inflated it has reversed, and the local wage base was never designed to hold those prices. Number 7. Fraser Valley, British Columbia. Fraser Valley was Vancouver's affordable alternative. Cities like Langley, Abbotsford, and Chilliwack became the landing zone for buyers priced out of Metro Vancouver. Between 2020 and 2022, prices in the valley rose faster than in Vancouver itself. The correction has been equally fast. The MLS HPI for Fraser Valley fell 7.5% year-over-year as of March 2026. That is a steeper decline than Vancouver proper. The mechanism is leverage. Fraser Valley buyers stretched further to get in. Many put the minimum down payment on prices inflated by speculative demand and the belief that proximity to Vancouver guaranteed permanent appreciation. When rates rose, the most leveraged buyers were the first to sell. Pre-construction buyers in the Fraser Valley are now facing appraisal gaps at closing, where the bank valuation comes in below the contract price, forcing them to bring extra cash or walk. In a market built entirely as spillover, supply has nowhere to go but down in price. Sellers in Fraser Valley are competing not just with each other but with Vancouver itself, which is also declining. That is the structural trap. The affordable alternative only works when the expensive original is still going up. Number 6. Cambridge, Ontario. Cambridge sits inside the Kitchener-Waterloo Cambridge corridor, and during the boom it attracted both factory workers and tech corridor commuters. The MLS HPI for Cambridge fell 6.6% year-over-year as of May 2026, per the Cornerstone Association of REALTORS. In March, the RBC figure was 7.4%. The average home price ran past $670,000 in a city where the median household income sits at roughly $80,000. That math required rates to stay low permanently. When they doubled, the carrying cost trap closed on Cambridge faster than anywhere else in the corridor. Cambridge shares the same structural problem as every Ontario market on this list. The price run was driven by GTA spillover, not local demand. Over-leveraged resale inventory is entering the market faster than local buyers can absorb it, and Cambridge is not even the most overvalued market in its own corridor. That distinction belongs to the city at number 4. Every town from number 10 through number 6 boomed because of a force that originated somewhere else. Migration from Toronto, spillover from Vancouver, remote workers, Airbnb investors. Not one was priced on what the local economy could sustain, and in every case the carrying cost trap, prices down but payments flat, is what keeps the recovery from starting. Ontario accounts for 4 of the next 5 towns. The dollar amounts get larger from here. Number 5. Greater Vancouver, British Columbia. Greater Vancouver appears on this list not because the percentage decline is the steepest. It appears because the dollar amounts are devastating. The benchmark home price in Metro Vancouver was $1,099,100 in June 2026, down 6% year-over-year. 6% sounds manageable until you translate it into dollars. A 6% decline on a benchmark above $1 million is roughly $66,000 in lost equity. Detached homes fell 7.1%. A buyer walking into Metro Vancouver today and locking in at current rates on the benchmark will carry a monthly payment nearly identical to what a buyer at the 2022 peak would have paid on a price 20% higher. That is the carrying cost trap at its most visible. The sales to active listings ratio sits at 13.1%, firmly in buyer's market territory, and the lowest reading in over 5 years. Nearly 17,000 active listings sit on the market. The correction is now in its 5th consecutive year. The benchmark sits more than 20% below the 2022 peak. A buyer who purchased a detached home at the peak has lost, on paper, roughly $260,000. Micro condos under 500 square feet have become an investor wasteland, with negative cash flow, rising maintenance fees, and zero end-user demand. CREA's forecast says the repricing is not finished. Number 4. Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario. Kitchener-Waterloo was supposed to be Ontario's success story. The tech corridor attracted major employers. The universities produced talent. The light rail connected the region. And the real estate market priced all of that optimism in at once. The RBC report shows the MLS HPI fell 8.6% year-over-year as of March 2026. By June, the average price in the Waterloo region was $729,650, a 6.5% annual decline, and a 1.9% drop from May alone. The Cornerstone Association of REALTORS reported June 2026 as the slowest June on record. Kitchener posted double-digit declines in sales year-over-year. The tech sector that was supposed to anchor prices has itself been contracting. Layoffs in Canadian tech accelerated through 2025 and into 2026. Demand weakened at exactly the same time listings climbed. The HPI benchmark in Kitchener-Waterloo sits at $642,000, down 5.5% year-over-year. In Cambridge next door, it dropped to $671,000. The entire corridor is repricing simultaneously, and the carrying costs have not dropped fast enough to bring buyers back. Number 3. Barrie, Ontario. Barrie sits roughly 100 kilometers north of Toronto on the western shore of Lake Simcoe. The GO train turned it into a Toronto commuter suburb, and prices followed. The RBC report shows Barrie's MLS HPI fell 8.4% year-over-year as of March 2026. Condo apartments in Barrie sit at a 13% sales to new listings ratio, the most distressed segment in the city. 5 months of inventory puts the market squarely in buyer's territory. A buyer walking into Barrie today is betting that the commuter premium will return. But the Alliston Honda plant, a major employer in Simcoe County, has added uncertainty as trade disputes put auto sector jobs at risk across the region. Return-to-office mandates shrank the commuter buyer pool. A buyer who purchased at the peak has lost roughly $80,000 to $100,000 in equity, depending on the segment. The pool is smaller. The carrying costs are higher. The prices have not finished adjusting. But Barrie's correction looks measured compared to the final 2 cities. Hamilton and Toronto carry the largest absolute losses on this list. Number 2. Hamilton, Ontario. Hamilton was the loudest revival story in Canadian real estate. The steel city that reinvented itself. The waterfront, the arts district. The GO train to downtown Toronto in under an hour. Investors, first-time buyers, and young families priced out of Toronto flooded in. Between 2020 and 2022, the average home price nearly doubled. Hamilton became the proof that you could buy near Toronto without paying Toronto prices. That narrative has collapsed. The Teranet National Bank House Price Index shows Hamilton down 9% year-over-year, the steepest decline of any city in the 11-city national composite. The MLS HPI benchmark eased to $737,400 in June 2026, down 5.4% from a year ago. Townhouses fared worse, with the segment down 8.6%. Days on market have stretched past 38. Months of supply sit at 5. A buyer who purchased a Hamilton townhouse at the peak is sitting on a loss exceeding $60,000. The data shows no stabilization through the first half of 2026. Every city on this list was priced on the same 3 assumptions: record low rates, record high migration, and the belief that proximity to a major city guaranteed appreciation. All 3 broke at once. But there is a 4th force still playing out, one that CREA's forecast only partially accounts for: the mortgage renewal wall. Hundreds of thousands of Canadian homeowners who locked in at rock-bottom rates in 2020 and 2021 are now hitting their renewal window. Many took 5-year fixed terms that are expiring right now, in 2025 and 2026. They are renewing at rates roughly double what they originally signed. In towns where values have also fallen, the combination of higher payments and negative equity is the trigger for forced selling. That is the carrying cost trap completing its cycle. The wave is still building, and it is hitting Ontario and British Columbia hardest. Number 1. Toronto. Toronto carries the most consequential correction in CREA's entire dataset, and it is concentrated in the segment that the most buyers entered: condos. The MLS HPI composite benchmark for the Greater Toronto Area fell 7.4% year-over-year. Condo prices specifically are down 9.5% as of May 2026. In January, the average GTA condo sold for $604,759, a 9.8% year-over-year decline. Sales volume collapsed 26%. Active condo listings reached nearly 18,000 units. A buyer walking into the GTA condo market today faces a structural problem no previous correction has produced at this scale. Between 2024 and 2025, roughly 59,000 new condo units were completed, many purchased by investors when rates were near zero. Those investors now hold units worth less than what they contracted to pay. Banks are appraising units at closing tens of thousands below the contract price, forcing buyers to bring extra cash or walk away. Assignment sales are trading below original purchase prices. Some investors are forfeiting deposits entirely. The new condo market has frozen. Only 85 new units sold across the entire GTA in January 2026, the lowest monthly figure since 1991. The investor suburbs are no better. Brampton and Mississauga carry some of the highest concentrations of over-leveraged investor-owned inventory in the country. Cash flow negative rental properties bought at peak prices are now hitting mortgage renewals at double the original rate. The math does not work. The forced sales are beginning. The rental side offers no relief either. Average condo rents across the GTA have fallen roughly 6% year-over-year. Vacancy rates have climbed to 3%. An investor who bought pre-construction, expecting appreciation and rental income, is watching both decline simultaneously. The cumulative condo correction from the first quarter of 2022 sits between 25 and 30%. CREA's senior economist described Ontario as really ice cold. The benchmark for the GTA sits 21% below its March 2022 peak. That is the deepest correction since the early 1990s, and the data through the first half of 2026 shows no sign that the floor has been reached. But here is the other side of CREA's data, and it matters. For a buyer with patience, a serious down payment, and a plan to hold for 7 to 10 years, the negotiating leverage in these markets is the strongest it has been in over a decade. Conditions and inspections are back. Offers below asking are landing. The carrying cost trap is real, but it is also temporary. Rates will eventually normalize, and when they do, the buyers who purchased at the bottom of the price curve will be the ones who built the equity. Which town on this list surprised you the most? Drop your city in the comments and tell me whether the CREA data matches what you are actually seeing on the ground. I read every single one. Subscribe. I cover Canadian housing every week with data, not headlines. See you in the next one.